Hello and welcome back to Star Citizen. My name is Evenlease, and today on 10 Minutes More or Less Ship Review, right behind me, I have the AEGIS GLADIUS, a light fighter. Let's go ahead and take a look. Alright everybody, welcome back to another review. Today the AEGIS GLADIUS. Let's go ahead and take a look at this light fighter. This ship is kind of a direct competitor to the Anvil Arrow. The Anvil Arrow is cheaper and a lot smaller and lighter, but this ship, definitely hits a little bit harder and honestly can stay in the battle for a little bit longer. Taking a look at those numbers. This ship, if you were to buy it outside of the game on the Pledge Store, it is $90, or if you were to buy it in-game, it is $2,381,400 AUEC. Definitely not a bad price tag, but a bit more than the Anvil Arrow. Now, looking at its stock DPS, it has 957 total stock DPS, and that's because it has one size 3 GT220 Mantis Gatling gun, which got a bit of an upgrade with 3.23 per se, just because it has a lot more ammo now compared to prior only having about 200 rounds. Now you're sitting at a couple thousand, which is really great, even though the damage is kind of dipped off a little bit. So some would call it a little bit of a trade-off, but you're still putting out more damage, I feel like, now with it compared to where you were prior. You have a lot more chances to at least hit your target before you have to go reload. Now, outside of that, you do have two CF337 Panthers, one on each wing, and then you do have a bit of a missile complement as well, with two size 3 Arrestor 3 missiles, as well as 4 size 2 Ignite 2 missiles. Definitely not a bad amount of firepower. The end of the wing here almost looks like a missile just by itself. It's pretty interesting. pretty cool design. This ship overall has a pretty great design, and it's gotten a lot of love by CIG throughout the years, primarily because you're going to be using the ship a ton in Squadron 42, so that's why. And some of the most recent change with 3.23 is its sound design, getting one of the most upgraded sounds in the game at the current time. Let's go ahead and take a quick look. Now, outside of the much beefier sounding sounds, and the fact that it just sounds really great, this ship has a total bubble shield strength of 3,000 and a total ship health pool of 7,160. So, not the greatest amount of health points. It's kind of low. The Arrow actually has about not 1,000, but about 500 health points more than this ship, surprisingly, even though it's smaller. But this ship is just kind of fragile. Once you get through that shield, you can start losing wings and other component areas quite quickly, and that's a pretty big, problem when you're flying a dedicated fighter like this. So something to consider. With that lower ship HP, you got to be very careful not to take too many hits. Now, moving past that, this ship does move very fast. It's got a top speed of 225 SCM, which isn't like the fastest, but it's definitely not terrible, with a 500 forward boost and a 260 backwards boost, with a nav speed of 1200. So you can definitely catch up to a Carrack or a Raft, but I don't know if I'd want to. Now, it also has 671 quantum fuel, so not the greatest amount of quantum fuel, especially with the fuel tank being on the bottom there, looking quite sizable. You'd think it would be able to carry a little bit more than that, but not so much. Now, touching back on the fact that this ship has gotten a lot of love by CIG, and that's because, it really has. If you look around the ship, it has a ton of different component access areas, and you can pretty much, it's gotten its gold standard pass. It's got everything, right? It's got physicalized buttons and all the stuff that you would need. It's just missing some of the components with like the engineering pass that's coming sooner or later. I'm not really sure how that'll affect these smaller ships. You can't really get out of your cockpit and change a capacitor out in the middle of a fight, right? So probably won't affect these ships too much, but it's just cool to see that all the components are accessible. They are there. They have operating buttons, and it's just really neat. Now, the cockpit looks fantastic too. We'll go ahead and get in there in just a second. But outside of that, in comparison to the Arrow sits a little bit lower on the DPS field when it comes to stock firepower at 898 compared to the 957 with this. 1500 shield on the Arrow, 8600 health points on the Arrow. Same fuel tank, though, on the Arrow. Again, surprising. The Arrow is much smaller. But again, like I say in my reviews here, these stats are all going to change over time. Every update, something's going to change. Like in 3.24, the damage count on the repeaters will probably change a little bit, and that's all right. So I'll continue to update these reviews as ships change dramatically and keep you guys updated with what's going on. Now, let's hop in the cockpit and test this thing out in a battle. If we're talking about comparisons and how much money you're spending on a ship, whether it's inside the game or outside of the game, there's another ship out there that could potentially give something like this a run for its money. Maybe not in maneuverability, but it can definitely, stack up against this in a lot of other categories. Taking a look at the Titan. The Avenger Titan has 1800 starting DPS. Same amount of shield as this ship, 4,000 more health points than this ship, can carry cargo, and honestly is a lot faster than this ship, SCM and nav speed. And you can also do a lot more with a ship like the Titan. But if you aren't in the game of running cargo packages or anything like that, and you just want to focus solely on combat, this really isn't a terrible pick. I would honestly choose this over the Arrow. Well, it seems instead of rambling on, it's time to start this fight. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, now that I finished that battle, you see that, honestly, the biggest threat to me was the Hornet in that fight, and that's because it could maneuver with me, so it was putting consistent fire on me. I was luckily able to keep my shields just barely and, outmaneuver it enough to hit it and take it out. Now, if that was a more competent AI or a player, that might have been a different story, and I could have, been blown to smithereens. The Vanguard didn't really have a chance against me because I could outmaneuver it, only its turret gunner could really only stay on point, and with that, I was able to take it out. So honestly, it looks great. The interior looks great. Love the components pass. It's a little light on its DPS, honestly, for a dedicated fighter. And the ship HP is really kind of a miss for me, just because I feel like it needs to be over 10,000. It really does. It's kind of a fragile ship, and the second you lose a wing, it's definitely a travesty. I've been there. If you've seen my last review on this ship, I've been there. For 3.23, this ship honestly gets a 7 out of 10 from me. And I honestly still think that's a great score. It's a great ship, especially if you compare it to something like the Anvil Arrow or even the Buccaneer. This is a good competitor in this class and is honestly a fantastic ship. I can see why so many people still use it. Let me know what you think of this ship down in the comments below. I'd love to hear if you still fly this ship or if you prefer something like the F8 or the, the Buccaneer or the Anvil Arrow. Thanks you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.